Google's PaLM 2 has been announced, and it is potentially the answer to competing with ChatGPT 4 from OpenAI. So if you guys are familiar with Google Bard, which was their ChatGPT style AI prompting answering software, well, guess what? PaLM 2 is an upgraded version to that, and according to The Verge, it is already powering 25 of Google's services. So now let's take a look at what PaLM 2 can do. So here directly from AI Google's website, PaLM 2 can excel at advanced reasoning tasks, so things such as code and math, and also classification and question answering. So a lot of things that are quite complicated already for humans, such as programming or just critical thinking, PaLM 2 is going to make that easier, as well as translations, multilingual proficiency, and natural language generation that's better than their previous state-of-the-art LLMs. So even including PaLM. So PaLM 2, aka the second version so far, let us see some examples. So here is a quick snapshot of a reasoning example. So for example, the prompt is: on a shelf there are 4 cars, a green car, a blue car, an orange, and a yellow car. The green car is to the left of the yellow car, and the yellow car is the second from the left. The blue car is the rightmost. What is the car order? Please think step by step. Now, for myself, just reading that directly, I'm going to need some time to actually think out what the answer is. However, we don't need to do that anymore because we have AI, aka PaLM 2. And here it says, the blue car is the rightmost, so it must be the last car in the order. Yellow is the second from the left, so it must be the second car in the order. Green is to the left of the yellow, and then orange is only car left. And basically, in summarization, it literally tells you in bolded font: green, yellow, orange, blue. Now, most of you are like, okay, whatever, fun little riddle, nothing fancy, how's it gonna help you? Well, this is just an example showcasing how intelligent this AI model is. So on the surface of it, cool, anyone could probably logic this out and figure it out themselves, but the fact that it can clearly identify this, and at least at this example it's accurate, imagine some of the other potential more advanced, complicated problems that are significantly more difficult to come up with, and it can instantly come out with a reasoning such as something like this. Now here's something that's very interesting, and for people who have traveled or you even speak multiple languages, most likely you probably have used Google Translate if you're in a particular country or even area where you just can't understand someone. I know there's other translating apps out there, but from my own experience, Google Translate seems to be the one that a lot of people and myself have used frequently. And there's some things that might not understand if you've never traveled or understand different languages, but certain phrases are very similar and different depending on the country you're from. And depending on the way you say it, it could sound like it sounds correct in your translation in your head, but to them it could either be something hilarious, offensive, or just outright something you should never say. So for example, here is something in German. I don't speak German, so can't confirm. But in English, it apparently translates to "I only understand train station." And then it says, can this translation be misunderstood? Which is the part that I haven't seen yet in current Google translations. And it says right here, this can be understood, and it apparently says "I don't understand anything" could be misunderstood as misinterpreted as "I only understand train stations." So just imagine you're walking around in Germany, you're super confused, and then you say this phrase, and if a local only speaks German, they might not be able to understand you. Whereas if they understand both English and German, maybe they can get it. But there's some other phrase I know in particular in Spanish and even other Asian countries particularly, even the way you say the particular tone can completely change the way the meaning is. So the fact that this is already starting, at least in their multilingual translation, that's going to be revolutionary, and I can see already future applications and things that they're going to create that are going to make global communication next level. Now here is a coding problem. Now this was actually in the keynote. I actually had a reference summary of this briefly, but here let's take a look at it again. Essentially, person has some code and they have a bug, and essentially they want this to be in Korean. So essentially you can see the short summary. It translates it with comments in Korean, and the main hype around this particular feature was, let's say you're an English speaking country, for example, let's just put USA, and you have a coworker or somebody you're working with in Korea, or could be any country but they just happen to speak Korean. Guess what? You can code in your language, English for this example, and have the comments added in your coworker partner's native language, for example here in Korean, and now you have this global massive ability to work with a bunch of other countries and people who don't even speak necessarily the same language as you, just from literal AI, which is going to be game changing. Now, it's obviously better to know the same language if you're working together. However, this could be easily useful for outsourcing or people you typically don't communicate with on a day-to-day basis. And this is just the beginning. And this was actually, it's funny they put the translation from the Google German and English above, and then next thing you know it, they have another translation from coding examples. So it seems like multi-language translation, especially with AI, is going to be a big deal. So quick fun facts, building PaLM 2. What is different? So bold letters, let's just read through real quick. Use of compute optimal scaling. So a basic idea they state here is to scale the model size and the training data set in proportion to each other. And essentially what this does is makes PaLM 2 smaller than PaLM, but is more efficient, and they have overall better performance, and it's even faster inference as well. And I think that's something too, as people don't understand, is speed, especially with these other AI competitors. Some of the apps, the features are magnificent, but the responses are significantly slower and almost to the point where it's unusable. And in today's world, attention is everything. People don't want to wait more than a few seconds to get something from. So as seeing, even just looking at Google Bard from their previous example, it's not like ChatGPT where it shows like a loading screen. It's simply you enter in your prompts, wait a couple seconds, and boom, instantly shows you the details. And they even said lower server costs. So get cost low, aka one can probably most likely make that free. I don't know if they're gonna end up charging for this stuff, but I'm pretty sure they won't, since Google makes a lot of money from advertising. But again, that's for another topic. And then also mention improved data set mixture, and then as well updated model architect and objective. So this stuff, more technical things that I'm not going to cover too much, but let's take a look at some more details regarding PaLM 2. So some other fun facts is that there are additional industries such as MedPaLM, and if you haven't heard about this is pretty impressive actually. And this is something that in particular, let's take a look at this charts. And essentially this graph is showcasing medical exam benchmarks, and according to, at least right here, approximate medical pass mark, you can see all these other versions. So they have GPT Neo, PubMed BERT, BioLink BERT Dragon, Galactica, and PubMed GPT. Now I'm not too familiar with some of these names, however it seems like these are more of the health medical related GPT AI softwares. And then you see PalMed 2 basically astonishing 85.4% when it goes up to its peak, which you can see right here. And according to that chart, the 85.4 was from a USmile exam style. So for example, here is a USmile style question. So if you're familiar with this, maybe you understand it, but for most, if you've never understood or even seen these medical exams, here is a question example. So let's just read this real quick. 32-year-old woman comes to the physician because of fatigue, breast tenderness, increased urinary frequency, and intermittent nausea for 2 weeks. Her last menstrual period was 7 weeks ago. She has a history of a seizure disorder treated with carbamazepine. Not even sure how to pronounce that, but physical examination shows no abnormalities. A urine pregnancy test is positive, and the child is at greatest risk of developing which of the following complications? And it has the list of the potential options. Now, for most of us, we probably have no idea what the answer is. Maybe if you are a doctor or maybe someone who studies frequently in the health and medical field, maybe you know this right off the bat, but just imagine for example, ability to get an answer right away. So if you're already a super expert doctor, you know all this, you might know this, but the amount of brain power and just the thinking it requires, and for people getting started in the space, this could make their life so much easier, because then they can double check their initial thoughts, and then if they notice something completely different from the AI, then they can up check that with additional sources. But for most people, again, this is going to be game changing for future patients and future health related incidents, because it makes life so much easier to get a diagnosis. And eventually I can see this to the point where the average person is just chilling at home, they notice something's wrong, they type in a couple questions, boom, the AI gives them somewhat accurate diagnosis, and then life's good, or they can go ahead and figure out the necessary steps to move on with the next steps to take care of whatever is bothering them. So this was an overall view on PaLM 2 and some of the other products Google is working on in the AI space. So do share thoughts, what do you think about this in the comments below, and like and subscribe to see the latest updates in the AI space.